Start marking your calendars, Utah hockey fans, because we got some dates we want to share with you guys and remind you guys. Not to mention, we got some Stanley Cup final talk and Locked On NHL Prospects reacts to the 2024 mock draft we talked about last week, all on today's episode of the Locked On NHL in Utah podcast.
You are Locked On NHL in Utah, your daily podcast on all things hockey in Utah, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On NHL in Utah, your number one daily podcast on all things hockey in Utah, the Utah Hockey Club. I am your host, Robyn Leonio, alongside Tom Callahan. We want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available everywhere you get your shows. We're rounding out this week of this show, getting all the dates going, because we have a decent amount of dumped on us in the last couple of days, Tom. Dates galore coming in to share with you guys all, and it is ready to get exciting for Utah hockey.
Well, if you keep your dates in your phone or you're old school, you have a planner, maybe you put it on a sticky note and put it on the fridge. No matter how you keep track of things, you're one of the people who writes it on your hand. I don't know, but we have a lot. There was a lot that was dumped on us. We got a preseason schedule that we now know as far as games go. We also know some key dates coming up as far as development and rookie camps. Obviously, we've got free agency and the draft coming up that we can add also as those important dates to the calendar. We're really starting to flesh it out now. And you know what, Robyn? It's giving me a little bit of a sense of excitement here. I'm getting a little tingly about it because this is real now. Here we go. You know, it's Utah, and the season's going to be so close. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, I mean, again, as I mentioned earlier, it feels like training camp itself feels a lot closer. It's like the joke we've made about. I think I've made it maybe once or twice on this show of, that little side, the little message you get on the side in your side mirrors on your car. Objects may appear closer than they appear, or closer than they appear. Like that's what it is, right?
Yeah,
like
the season's creeping up. Yep.
Yeah, it just seems that way. You're like, oh yeah, preseason isn't, begins in like September. That feels like a decent amount of ways. Like, oh my God, it's much closer than I actually anticipated.
When you told me that we were at that 100-day threshold, that was really the moment where I said, oh, this is getting close now. And of course, when you're either moving people, relocating them, whether it's the hockey upside, the players, some of the staff that are going, new staff that you're hiring. I'm sure there'll be some staff sharing with the Utah Jazz here as well. Like, there's so much going on right now. It's wild just to think you're trying to bring this all together and sign corporate sponsors and sell people tickets and figure all that out and your pricing structures and all that. And then your logo and your colors and your uniform. And it's unbelievable how much has to happen. There is zero time to rest.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like even more so for this new Utah franchise. Not to say the other teams don't have a lot to do. All 32 NHL teams have significant amounts starting from the draft in exactly a week from now, Tom. There is a lot every one of these teams can be doing. But for Utah, you add in everything that all the other teams need to be doing, while also focusing on getting ready to field the team for the first time in Utah.
It's a lot. I mean, I remember when I walked into Tucson for the first time, it was just after the 4th of July weekend, and the team was playing in the fall and doing the broadcasting, the communications, and the marketing. Super short runway. Yes, there was support from up top. That Coyote staff was there to help support with some things, but really not everything, because they didn't know Tucson. They didn't know the market, and I had to, make all those connections. And it's just meeting with people, finding out who in the community are your influencers and your helpers. And you got to find out who the politicians are, and you've got to learn, what part they're playing, which is why I think Utah has a little bit of a leg up again on the business side because of the Jazz. So they already have a lot of those connections made. They already have a lot of that forged. That helps them so much with time and trying to build all this, as opposed to just going into a new city completely blind. They're going into a new city where they maybe, I don't know if I'd call it a roadmap, but they definitely have some bullet points and highlights to go by. So it's a little easier, but it's still a pretty stark ramp up.
It very much is. And let's get into the dates, Tom, so we can let people know what's really coming up. I mean, of course, we'll start off by saying, hey, coming in exactly a week from now, we got the NHL Draft at Sphere Las Vegas. So if you are a Utah fan, you want to make the, I think, 5-6 hour drive from Salt Lake City to Vegas, I mean, go for it.
Really depends how fast you drive. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a whole lot in that, the decent chunk of that drive. I'm pretty sure you can make it a little bit quicker.
Fudge it a little, yeah.
You can either do that, or Tom, and as you kept reminding a lot of our listeners every day for the last week or so, you can attend the NHL Draft watch party that the Utah Hockey Club will be hosting at the Delta Center that night as well.
That's going to be very exciting. You can be there and you'll feel a buzz. I guarantee there will be a buzz that night in the building and around the building. I'm sure it's going to be a gorgeous night weather-wise, and just it's going to be fantastic, and really your first chance to kind of rub elbows with your fellow hockey fans and maybe even some folks on staff up there. It's just going to be a huge buzz. So hopefully folks can come down. I think doors are at 4, and then the draft held at Sphere. And remember, it's a 2-day draft, but really round 1 is where the buzz is, and Utah picking 6th. You'll have your answer sooner than later if they don't trade out of that pick, which direction they're going to go.
Absolutely. And just only a couple days after that, after the 2-day draft, the free agency period begins. Just comes up extremely quickly after that. But at the same time, Tom, from July 1st to July 5th, over in Park City, Utah, we got Prospect Development Camp. So I think on the 5th, there is going to be a public scrimmage. It's been known that's usually what happens with Prospect Development Camp. If you guys are new to it, it's a public scrimmage that you're allowed so fans can see what's the future of this team. They're going to see all of the prospects together in one building, play a scrimmage against each other. It's going to be like a black versus white or black versus blue game or whatever it might be, in one place in Park City.
And really, if you're a big follower of the team and you want to get to know some of the guys, I'll tell you a couple things. Number one, there's going to be faces at this camp that you will only see at this camp for 2 or 3 more years that are coming in, and there'll be development camp, and then maybe they'll end up with the minors, they'll end up back in junior. But there are a couple of guys who might be in this camp who have a legitimate chance at making the team. And a lot of teams try to use it as a chance to get to know their first round, second round, third round draft picks and see if any of them, whoever, Utah may pick at number 6, can make an impact. And so I think it's a very exciting time. It gives you a little bit of a chance to see what you have. Plus, the other thing, it's the first time you get to see the coaches out there, look at what their focus is, their expectations. I think it's a great time. It's a lot of fun, and it's a little looser than training camp. So, you might be able to sneak it on here and there.
It really is just get an idea of what these, where these prospects are at. A lot of them are maybe just meeting up with them. It's like saying, all right, where are all you guys on your diet plans? They have nutritionists. They focus on that because they want to build these kids up to be NHL ready, NHL size, because you don't want to be a significantly undersized player in the NHL because that could lead you to a disadvantage, to a certain extent. So those are all the things they tend to focus on in those things. And I'll tell you, Tom, it is really fun to be at a prospect development camp. I got a chance to do it last year over here in Arizona when, the last prospect development camp for the Arizona Coyotes got it, getting a chance to see Josh Stone and Maverick Lamoureux, Connor Geeky, so many big names, Logan Cooley, getting a little bit glimpse of Logan Cooley even. It's getting all of those guys in one room. It's an excitement. And so many people for even day one, it was a public practice, so many people coming in and out. And it's and like you said, it's very casual, even for the fans. You can go in and out, kind of see how things are. The next couple of days are usually private, but that's okay. I even had a situation where I had a couple fans come up to me, interact with them, and I just had casual conversations with them about what I think, where these prospects are going. I love that kind of time.
Absolutely. And it is a good time. Sometimes you'll be able to hear things from coaches or staff. You can listen to the instruction on the ice. And we do talk about a lot of the off ice stuff. And a lot of it is just about these kids growing up in the game and now trying to make that next step to the NHL, which there's a gap, depending on where you're coming from. So some of them might be adapting to a North American game. Some of them may have been playing over here, especially if they're from here. It's really interesting to see how everybody deals with it in their own way. But the other thing too, that I'm kind of curious to see is if anything really changes for Utah in a new setting, in a new scenario, and what kind of, I guess, thought they will have towards the fans, because it is the first one of these ever.
It really is. So certainly be a glimpse into what's new, what's coming up. There's an unknown factor that I think makes someone like myself a little bit more excited for it.
I couldn't agree more. Especially you're going to get your first look at maybe some jerseys here, at least practice jerseys. It's going to be a lot of firsts. And so who's going to be the first guy to step on the ice, wearing that Utah jersey? And that's always a cool moment. And I think the fans will just absolutely love it. I hope a lot of folks are able to make it out there if they want to be able to make it out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. One more date I want to talk about before we head into a short break here. We're running a little bit overtime on this, but got to talk about it. The preseason schedule is out as well. And that is the next dates we wanted to bring up. As we see, September 22nd is when the preseason begins. That is the first home game, except it's not really a true home game. It's being played over in Des Moines, Iowa. First true home game at the Delta Center. The first Utah Hockey Club game at the Delta Center is September 23rd versus the Los Angeles Kings. And then you have at the end a home game at the Maverick Center, which is home of the Utah Grizzlies.
So that'd be a nice birthday present for me to be covering those games. My birthday is the 24th. Shop early, shop often, everybody.
I love that.
Yes. I'll send you my list if you really want it. Des Moines, Wells Fargo Arena, actually a really nice building. I've called games in there in the American Hockey League. Beautiful setting. That's kind of a cool place for them to go down the road and kind of establish themselves a little bit in the Midwest. Here's the other thing. I'm just thinking ahead. Right now, I think it's is it the Iowa Stars that, no, they would have moved to Dallas. So
Iowa Wild.
The Iowa team, Iowa Wild. Thanks. I have to catch myself up. So the Iowa Wild are there. I don't know if Minnesota's ever thinking about moving their team around, but if there's a relationship with Des Moines, I'm just throwing that out there for down the road. If Utah ends up with the Tone American Hockey League team, could it end up in Des Moines? Maybe. But that's neither here nor there. Then Delta Center, which is going to be great. That's the first time we're going to see the team on the ice. Then 4 in a row on the road. And Robyn, if you don't mind, throw that graphic back up. I want to take a look at the opponents here. So St. Louis, Los Angeles, and those early games, the ones that Utah fans will see, are going to be a lot of rookies, people trying to make the camp. And then as you get a little further in, you get cuts. So Vegas and Colorado, you're going to see more the middle of the pack. And then that last weekend, that San Jose and Anaheim stretch right there on the road in California, I guarantee you that is the cut down games. And then the 5th against Colorado at the Maverick Center, that is, you have 1 or 2 guys who are on the bubble, maybe 3 guys on the bubble playing in that game against Colorado at home, trying to make the team. But by that point, you're pretty much set. Now you're working on your special teams. Now you're working on everything, your breakouts, your line changes, your neutral zone play, all of that, forecheck, your back check, everything that is systemic for the team is going to be on display there. That's when you're going to get the best sense of who Utah is going to be this year. Like I say, with a couple of bubble guys fighting. So that's kind of how the preseason works out. And it's interesting they have that middle swath on the road, which is a great place for those either rookies or, veterans trying to make the team or whatever it is to really prove themselves kind of away from the spotlight of Utah. But also, boy, it's not easy to do it on the road. And if you can, I think that really, tests your mettle, if you will.
Yeah, that will certainly test them a lot. And I feel like that will kind of give, Bill Armstrong, Andre Tourigny, and, all of the Utah Hockey Club coaching staff and a really good look at, like, does this player actually deserve a spot on the opening night roster? Sometimes it takes a really big question like that to allow a player to get a shot. Sometimes they kind of already know, all right, we already know this player is going to go down, but let's just at least give them some extra time. Then they surprise.
Every year you're going to get a surprise. It might be a good surprise or a bad surprise, but every year you're going to get a player that does not perform to expectations, and that's always the exciting part.
It was always interesting when, like, this last year for the Coyotes, when I felt like I kept asking the question, when is this player going to get sent down? Because I feel like he's supposed to get sent down by now. And then it turns out I'm trying to remember if they either got sent down right before the final game or they even made the opening night roster. You know what? It was Dylan. I believe it was Dylan Guenther. Who I'm talking about. Like Dylan Guenther, he survived made the opening night roster and just killed it enough to just kept himself up through, however many games. And I was like, you know what, dude? Good on you. You deserve
it. Absolutely. You love seeing that out of guys that fight their way into a spot.
Anyways, we're running a little overtime on this first segment. We're going to talk some Stanley Cup final in just a little bit. And also talk about some more prospects, some entry-level contracts. Still got a lot to talk about. But first, Tom, a quick word from our friends from Ultimate Hockey GM.
Okay, Tom, unmute your mic, sir. All right. Hey, Locked On Utah NHL fans, I want to take a moment to bring up one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM, and I know you have, and maybe you think you could do a better job than Bill Armstrong, maybe you could, well, your dream can come true, and this game is most definitely for you. You can manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, lead the team to glory, lift the Stanley Cup. You hire the right coaches and staff. You can trade players and draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic world. As a Utah fan, you know there's no offseason. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you're going to love this game. Check it out. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free, playable offline, so play on the go wherever you want, whenever you want. By the way, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL. That's LOCKEDON NHL in the game store. So make sure to check it out. Download it at hockeygm.app. That's hockeygm.app, or check it out in your mobile app store. Ultimate Hockey GM, start your dynasty today.
Let's keep things rolling on this episode of Locked On NHL in Utah. Let's step away and talk with some more league news, Tom, because the Stanley Cup final was going to 6 games, much to my surprise. I thought it was going to be a complete sweep, or at the very least a 5-game series. And they surprised. They surprised. The Edmonton Oilers certainly gave us a surprise. Extended this series again to 6 games.
Edmonton would tell you they're not surprised. And I'm sure their fans who were in panic mode when it was 3-0 would tell you they're not surprised. But here we are. So, I mean, look, there's a reason it's a best of 7. It is a really, really hard series to win. It's the hardest trophy in all of pro sports to win. To be able to go through 4 best of 7s, 16 wins, it's hard to do. Florida's got 15, but there's no guarantee that they win the next 2 games either. And look, plenty of teams get 3 and 4 game win streaks during the year, but if you've made it this far, you've done it because you've overcome adversity. You've done it because you figured out how to win in the playoffs. And the fact that you're now pushing it to a game 6, it doesn't matter how you got there. You could have split every series so far and Florida could have held serve last time out. It does not matter. It's 3-2 now. And I'll tell you what, Edmonton, we were talking about it, and I actually was talking about it with some of my friends before Game 5. I said, really, to me, it's the first 10 minutes. And if Edmonton scores in the first 10 minutes and gets their confidence and thinks that last game was not a fluke, now they're not going to win 8-1 again, but it's not a fluke. Then Florida's really got a series on their hands, and that's exactly what happened. Edmonton came out, got that goal, punched it back to a Game 6, as they're saying, dragged it back to Alberta. And now in Game 6, I mean, it's really Connor McDavid has taken over the series. I know some folks are on Leon Draisaitl. He's been noticeably absent in the scoring column. I guarantee you, when we're done with the end of the season, we're going to find out what's wrong with Draisaitl. He's not healthy. There's no way he's healthy. So we'll find out what it is when we're done. But this is McDavid's cup to win or lose now. Mm-hmm. And I mean,
boy, has he turned those Jets on. Like he
has.
Absolutely. He wants it. It shows how much he wants it. And you know what?
And Florida's going to figure out how to stop him.
Yeah. They got to.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, right? You're watching, guys like Tkachuk and Reinhart and all these guys try to figure it out. And I mean, look how hard they're hustling. And I know everybody's been showing that empty net goal the other night, ad nauseum. But I mean, Tkachuk lays out, makes an incredible play. Now, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I was praising OEL pretty much the whole game until that shift because he quit. He quit on the play, and you watch McDavid skates right to the puck, throws in the empty net. After that amazing effort, OEL, what does he do? Turns up the wall, turns away, thought it was over. Play to the whistles, kids. Play to the whistles.
Absolutely. And you know what? I let's put it. One thing I will say, Tom, if there are any of our Utah listeners who maybe haven't been paying attention to the Stanley Cup because you just kind of want to, maybe you got something else going on. Maybe for the most of it, maybe you're watching the NBA Finals because you did that appealed to you more at the time. If you have yet to watch a single Stanley Cup game, you got a great opportunity of Game 6 coming up. By the time you guys are listening to this tonight at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Our time, actually here I live in Arizona, so 6 p.m. For those that live in Utah. So
8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific.
You know what? That makes it easier. There we go.
And here's the other thing too is this series, I'll be honest with you, if you were watching the NBA Finals, maybe you're a big Jazz fan and you just want to watch, the Celtics absolutely destroy the Mavericks. And you watch that series to its conclusion, that one never really got going. I mean, the Mavs won that one game and that was their kind of shot at it. But now, honestly, this series wasn't great through the first 3 games because Florida was just, for the most part, that much better. Yeah. It's not like that anymore. This is absolutely now just neck and neck. It is so close and it's so fun.
I want to take a look at, I want to look up the stat, but I also don't want to I don't want to say the words because I don't want it, because I want to see it happen. I don't want any Alberta, Oilers or whatever fans to call me out for a drink. I'm not sure if anyone's listening to this, but I mean, you know what? I might as well. I'm not an Oilers fan, so I'm not like. When was the last time we saw not necessarily just a reverse sweep, but just a comeback from a 3-0 deficit in the Stanley Cup final? I feel like it's been a long time.
It's only happened once. It happened in 1942. It was the Toronto Maple Leafs came back from down 3-0 to the Detroit Red Wings. It's only happened once in the final that teams come back to win. Now, as far as a team coming back from down 0-3 to force a Game 7, off the top of my head, I don't know. But as far as anyone coming back to win, the Leafs are the only team that's done it.
That's impressive. So if Edmonton is somehow able to pull together a miracle, think about that. Like the last team that do is a Canadian team, and if Edmonton pulls out a miracle and becomes the first Canadian team since
82 years.
8, yeah. or even just the first Canadian team in to win the Stanley Cup since how long has it been now?
93.
The 93. So
Montreal won it in 93. Yeah.
So 31 years, right? Is that 31 years?
Yeah.
Imagine that. Like that's something right for the history books.
Absolutely. And it would be Edmonton's first cup since 1990. So, but Florida's never won it. They've been a bridesmaid a couple of times, and I'm sure the Panthers are saying to themselves, it's interesting right now how the media is trying to accuse both teams of having the pressure on them. Florida, you have the pressure of not folding, but Edmonton has the pressure of win or go home and end of your season. There's just so much going on here at stake. There's pressure on both teams. Don't kid yourself. The game is in Edmonton. It certainly favors Edmonton on the outside looking in. But again, you got to play all 60 minutes, and there's a reason for that. If Bobrovsky stands on his head and steals this game, it doesn't matter how good McDavid is if he doesn't score. But then again, if Bob doesn't stand on his head and McDavid delivers another 4-point night, well, it's going to be awful tough to beat the Oilers at home. So there's a lot of things at play here.
There certainly is a lot, and you'll have an opportunity to watch it tonight tonight, and it will be a certainly fun game to watch. I will certainly have my my eyes glued to the TV for this one, because it's gonna be one hell of a game.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Forgive me for saying this, but as much as I did pick Florida to win the Cup, I wouldn't mind a Game 7. There's nothing better than a Game 7 for the Stanley Cup.
It certainly would be an amazing. I think the best words anyone can say, the chance of this happening is incredibly low. But the best words anybody can say is sudden death, overtime, Game 7, Stanley Cup final.
Yep. That's the rare animal.
The rarest of the rare, but also it's, it's the unicorn. You want to see that so bad.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. And these two teams are capable of giving it to us. So I don't know. We'll see. Fortunately, it's not my heartburn. I'm not an executive or a team member for either one of those. I'm not a fan of either team. I'm just a fan of the game of hockey.
You know what? I've made this comment a couple times before I think either on the show or just with friends. It's actually sometimes a breath of fresh air when your team isn't in it. You can enjoy the intensity of the Stanley Cup playoffs without feeling the torture in your heart and then your knives twisting or whatever it might be feeling. I've had days in which when my hometown team was in childhood team was in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and my heart rate gets at the 200 beats per minute, and I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack.
That's part of being a sports fan.
I love it. Oh, I love it, and I miss it. But it's kind of like nice not to be able to do it and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Buffalo, so right now Sabres fans are sick of trying to enjoy it. They would like to go back to the playoffs.
You're right.
My friends are in agony right now, but that's
No, I absolutely hear you. Well, we're going to finish up our talk right here on Locked On NHL in Utah. We're going to get back to talking about what's going on with Utah hockey. We got one of our sister shows reacted to the mock draft. I'm going to share with you guys what they had to say. I'm going to do that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP. Bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Let's begin this final segment, Tom. I want to start off by sharing with you all a little clip from our sister show, Locked on NHL Prospects. Hadi Karlakesh and Sebastian High. They talk prospects 5 days a week, as much as we talk NHL in Utah. They're getting ready for the draft. Earlier this week, they reacted. I did a full reaction to the Locked On NHL mock draft, and I gave their thoughts on each of the 32 picks. I've got a clip with you guys, maybe to get excited of what I picked for in the mock draft for Utah, and let's see what they had to say, and we'll discuss in a second. But here is Locked On NHL Prospects.
Moving on to number 6, we have got the Locked On Utah unnamed team. Yeah, I think it's Utah HC. Has it been officially confirmed yet? Regardless,
I mean, for the first season, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But Utah HC picks up Zane Parekh, the right-handed defenseman of the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL. He's my top-ranked defenseman, incredibly mobile, incredibly capable with the puck. He's composure personified. His ability to just stay calm under pressure is ridiculous. And he's a true definition of a quarterback in all 3 zones. What I mean by that is he dictates which direction the play takes. That's the most interesting part for me of Zane Parekh's game, is that he's the one controlling play almost at all times. And when he's not controlling play, I think his defense isn't even half as bad as being made out to be. The tape I watched in the OHL playoffs and in the Memorial Cup, like, he was shutting down some of the CHL's top forwards, right? Like, that wasn't bad tape from Parekh defensively.
It's not. Like, he still has a lot of raw habits in his defensive play, but he plays with a high motor. He's quite vicious quite often. Like, he plays with some violence. He's 6 feet, 178 pounds. He's not tiny by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I could see him topping out at like 195, 200 when he's a full-time NHLer, which is perfectly fine, especially when you are such a dynamic offensive defenseman, with which Zane Parekh is. There's definitely some consistency issues defensively in terms of engagement. He can be a little bit of a passenger at times in the defensive zone, but there's nothing there aren't many things there that I don't see as fixable or as like things that can be progressed a significant amount with targeted development. And I think that Utah would be a very fun franchise for him to land in. I mean, as a first draft selection after the move, Zane Parekh is like as entertaining and dynamic a player as you could hope to get.
Yeah, I think with Zane Parekh with the offense, I mean, if he develops properly, works on his defense a bit, I see a point per game defenseman. Like, there's real offensive potential with him.
And if he's playing with Dmitry Simashev of all people, as
you've got the perfect
picks, that's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You got the perfect insulator for him long term. A player who's going to be able to kind of allow him a bit more freedom offensively.
Tom.
Okay, I like a couple of the things that were said there. And one of the things Sebastian hit on that I liked was pointing out the coachability. Sometimes we talk about a guy's projection versus his ceiling. Some teams will go after a guy based on what they perceive as his ceiling. If a player maxes out his development potential, where does this player land? Or if this player just, it's the old, shoot for the moon, you may still land among the stars. Where do you project this player into your lineup? Well, it sounds like there's a lot of upside, and the things that he does need to work on are coachable things. There are some things you can't teach a guy to have a mean streak. You can't. You either have it or you don't. You can't teach a guy instincts. You either have it or you don't. Just like you can't teach size. You have it or you don't. But you can teach positioning. You can teach engagement. You can teach gap. You can teach skating. You can teach shooting, passing, puck handling, all of that. You can teach. And so to me, that sounds like a tremendous asset to have in your farm system coming out of the draft.
And it's certainly I'd say a player you can be excited for, right? If for the first pick in a completely new city, new fans coming in, make a splash with someone who has the versatility, who has coachability, and who has the near NHL readiness of a guy like Zane Parekh. It would be an incredibly smart pick. It would be to me, it'd be the ideal pick.
I think that would be, I mean, as far as having some dynamism, from the defensive side, not that they don't have some guys who can be exciting up front, but there's not like McDavid's grow on trees, but this could give you a little bit of that excitement, that rush from the back end, the guy who can make some plays in the back end, which can make guys up front also look good, especially if he's, good with the dish or is a visionary passer, if he has those skills, which it sounds like he does. Plus, fans tend to gravitate to the guys that's on the hometown side that plays with that little bit of an edge. The hometown fans like that. So it sounds to me like we have our one of our early candidates for most purchased jersey of the year.
Certainly could be. And again, we will find out who Utah selects in the draft coming up in just a week from now at number 6 overall. They got their pickings, a lot of defensemen available, and Zane Parekh is just one of them. And to be honest, as they mentioned at the end of that little clip there, is thinking about that, in a couple years from now, he's going to be playing alongside Dmitry Shemishev. You got big shutdown guy paired up against quick moving, puck moving offensive guy. I think that's a really good kind of pairing to get out of it, because you have in the moment where Zane Parekh wants to move up and take a chance. If it doesn't work out, you got Shemishev already on the back check, already back on the other side of the ice, ready to defend.
And I think you're right. That is a good pairing. I mean, for defense, especially if you have a guy who's going to want to take off and run, you better make sure that your partner knows to cover back. And I think that that's something that, we could easily see if that was the pick. So, yeah, there's a lot to be excited about for this draft coming up. And I mean, really, as you mentioned, there's a pretty good stock of D that can be taken at that number 6, whether they go that direction or not. Even if they slide back a couple of picks, there's still a pretty good chunk of, NHL caliber defensemen that can be had in the top 10, maybe even top 12 picks.
They've got a wide pickings this year for defensemen, and it is certainly exciting for the draft. If you want to take a look at what the rest of Locked On NHL Prospects has on the rest of the mock draft and hear what they had from picks 1 all the way to picks 32, you can head on over to their show. It's Locked On NHL Prospects. You can find them wherever you get your shows. Now, Tom, I did want to talk about some signings and some other contract info. We're a little bit out of time on this one, so why don't you say we kick it to a little bonus episode coming up for them in a little, maybe like a little quick bonus episode for them coming up later.
All right, we can do that.
We can do that.
That works for me.
That works. All right, we're gonna be it. So that'll be it for this episode of Locked On NHL in Utah. We got that as a roundup. We will have that bonus episode coming out later, so be sure to stay locked in. But if you like what you heard on this one, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you've yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube. Interact with us on social media. We are on X at LO_NHL Utah. I am at Robyn_Leonio. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on air. Interact with us. Ask a question you might have. We might interact right back. We're on a future episode of the Locked On NHL in Utah podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you very soon.